When I walk with my camera in places where otherwise I would never walk, I do get meaning out of being able to see how do we live? How do most people on this planet actually live? And I feel we should all see that and experience that. I think it's important to photograph, but not as a case study, just as us, humanity. I don't know why we're here, but I do know that everybody is towards being seen by others. And yeah, so maybe the photography is a little bit of an extension of my curiosity about who else is here with me on this planet, and I want to honor it in some ways.
What do you love about photography?
I love being super present. I guess I didn't realize that usually I'm not that present, and when I'm with my camera I feel there's just nothing else, like hyper focused, and it's just, yeah, almost like practicing mindfulness or something. Like it is so being so in the moment. And because I shoot in places where maybe I otherwise wouldn't go, I also feel very alive. I went backpacking like many 18-year-olds. Well, lucky 18-year-olds could do after high school before university started. So Southeast Asia. I had a bunch of disposable cameras with me, but it was really more about documenting my experience versus um, the world around me, which I think fits an 18-year-old. Very much focused on myself, and I just wanted to have, some memories. And then I think I didn't think about photography, and I didn't think of myself as a creative person at all for many many years. I first decided I want to try this, do this. I need something else in my life. Like, became suddenly work, family. After having kids, I couldn't do a lot of running. So I just needed something else. And then we had COVID.
Hmm.
And I started to really look into the technical aspects of photography. And that it's just nice to learn something new. It's like learning a new skill. But I think I really fell in love when I discovered, I think, street photography. So I like travel photography too. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of where I started. And then that naturally developed into street photography, which is also still, I think, a very broad genre. And within that, I think I'm more and more finding my own path, so to say.
Who are some of your creative influences or inspirations?
There's a lot of street photography on Instagram, which is not
Hmm.
the right way of looking at photography. And it was only through conversations with others during my very first workshop. I did a workshop in Kyoto with a photographer. His name is Jonathan Jasberg. And it was very overwhelming, this workshop for me. And I think it was there were so many names of other photographers that were mentioned, and that I really started to explore Alex Webb or Harry
Hmm.
Guerre, Vivian Meyer.
When you stare at a great, Vivian Maya,
Yeah.
are you immersed in it, or are you constantly looking at like how could I improve my own photography relative
Oh,
to what
yeah,
this
yeah.
person is doing?
I feel a really good photograph makes you feel something before anything else. So yes, I want my picture. Want, I want, if things are cut off, I want them to be cut off in a certain way. I pay attention to the edges, the composition, the colors, like all of it. But the reality is, you
Hmm.
can have a perfect picture and you feel nothing. And sometimes, I mean, someone else can say, if you get feedback from others, they could say, oh, yeah, but no, I don't. And the other way, it could be the not perfect picture and you feel something. So I would always pick a picture that makes you feel something.
On a pre-call, we talked a little bit about the difference between moving from photographing something versus being intentional. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think you make a lot of, by making a lot of mistakes, you become more and more intentional. So I would, for example, I guess initially I would find a good scene and I take a lot of photos. So I would take like 50 photos of a scene and, and I haven't moved.
Right.
And then I overlooked something and then I can't use anything because, there is maybe, I don't know, like a yellow bag, a fluorescent yellow bag in a certain way that I can't even
Right.
crop it out. And I have 50 pictures and I didn't even think of also trying a different angle. And usually, I mean, sometimes your first shot is just a picture. You don't need, but sometimes you really need to work a scene.
Is that an organic process, or do you, so for example, do you walk through the streets and try find areas, or do you happen to pass by and then you go, I'm coming back here because there's something rich about this environment?
I'm 100% a fisher, and I definitely go back. But in a place where people live
Mm-hmm.
outside a lot, like life is, it's not just commuting, but people are really living outside, which was the case in Vietnam. A lot of people live quite small. So you do go back because a place can have a lot of atmosphere, but the light may not be good. Or you got there in the afternoon, but you may not know yet that actually it's the morning when things are really happening. So I think it's really important
Right.
if you are a fisher that you go back at different times of the day, different days of the week, and then you're going to discover, okay, 4 o'clock, the light on that corner is amazing. And then you're going to hope that one day you're just going to go and go and go and make lots of pictures that don't work until you have one. And that's what I mean with intentional shooting. It's not just like in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, but it's also like you you kind of know what you want, but you can't force. I think one thing that all street photography has in common is that we appreciate that it needs to be candid.
It's interesting what I do love about your work. To get people to behave in such a relaxed manner, it
Mm.
seeps through your photography. It's quite clear that they are going about their business, but they've also opened up to some extent. They're clearly not too self-conscious. Susan Sontag talks about, photography is perhaps stealing a moment from people. And I'm curious how you go about, interacting with your subject matter, making sure that they feel comfortable to not only let you take the photo, but just to be themselves. That's really difficult to do.
Yeah. I come very close. I shoot with a 28 millimeter, so I need to get very close to my subjects so they 100% know I'm there. I try not to make too much contact, but I do try to be very respectful. Usually I would hang out in a spot. But at one point, I'm just shameless, Like once they're kind of like, oh, there she is again, It's like we've seen her many times, and we have
Sure.
work to do, right? We are. So I think when people are busy, it does really help. But I wanted to respond to one thing you said, and I don't want to take the question into a different direction, but stealing a moment of someone is interesting because I did a project that was in the last months that I lived in Hanoi. I did a project in a market. This market is a night market. And I think I photographed the market in a way that the market doesn't look like at all. That is not
Mm-hmm.
the vibe. That is not the atmosphere at all in that market. So, in a way, like what you shoot or what you don't shoot, you're also creating something that may not have ever been there, even though it's candid, but it never, to me, the market that I photographed is kind of mysterious and beautiful. And it's a bit, you know, it's not at all. It's loud and people are yelling, and most of the market has like really bright lights, and the ground is messy and it's not, but I like it when my
Yeah.
mom sees the photos. She's like, "Oh, I really want to go to that market." I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want to go to that market.
Yeah, it is a part of your skill. It's the ability to take, and I understand. But when you see these photos, you do genuinely want to be there, and you almost think to yourself, why am I not there capturing these amazing moments? What's deceiving about it is it's not easy to make an environment like that look as
No,
beautiful as it does.
the success rate of street photographers is extremely low. So you go out there and you take a
Sure.
thousand pictures, and you're gonna have 10 reasonable photos, and you may only select, two of them if you're picky. But I feel like
Well,
you need to be. I That is the only thing where I think you should be picky. We should all be picky. I want to see your I don't want to see your best 40. I want to see your best five, because that's also part of the creative process, no? Deciding like what's good enough, what not, like filtering things out. But I think the street photographers in general should 99% is not good. So anyone who wants to do street photography needs to know that everybody shoots like that. Nobody has like on one day like 20 amazing photos. It's just not possible.
let's talk a little bit about some specific work. This photo, I believe, was taken in Bangladesh. Beautiful photograph. Vendor in the shadows is packing eggs into a pyramid shape.
So this was taken in Bogra. There was a market alongside train tracks. There were a couple of sellers with these eggs, and I was thinking, I think at this point I understood that you can, it's good to expose for the highlights. So I kind of knew, what to do with my camera, and I
Mm-hmm.
envisioned these hands coming, and I waited 35 minutes. I sat there
Wow.
quite uncomfortable in a certain angle, but I was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think the fly on the one of the front
Yes, and the
eggs was a wonderful bonus. And I loved this photo so much, but I didn't want to share it for quite a long time because I thought, oh no, but people don't understand it. People will not
right.
get it. I was too shy to share it, but in the end I did, and I think it was the first photograph that was shown at an exhibit in Paris. It's difficult, these type of photos. I feel like I like them, the quirky ones, but if I would only go for these type of photos, I think I would have very few photos.
Was this captured on a Leica, on the Leica, your Q2 or your Q3?
Yes, Q2, yes, yes, on my Leica. Again, 99% of the pictures are not good, even with a Leica, like are not, are not good
Sure.
photos necessarily. But what I do think where the Leica played a very big role, and that's actually I see the next photo that you have that and well, I guess we'll get to talk about it. I think that the Q3 is exceptionally good in a low light environment. So this is
Right.
it's quite dark, and I do think here that the Leica Q3 makes a huge difference. Like I don't with many in many cases I would say it matters more who holds the camera than what camera it is, right? Like I mean,
Sure.
a great photographer can do amazing things with a even with their cell phone. But yeah, I cannot deny that having a camera that does well under these circumstances really helped. Yeah.
Speaking of moving from Bangladesh, you then said that the distinction between that first photograph that was taken a while ago, Bangladesh, to now being here in Hanoi, we just talked about a market that you said if you were there in reality, you wouldn't necessarily want to be there. But when you see this photo, you think there's just so much interest. There's so many layers going on. There's so much, the colors, the textures. It is an environment which you would, in theory, would actually love to be there. But I'm sure the reality is quite different.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think one big difference between Bangladesh and Vietnam for me is that in Bangladesh at the time, I wasn't so because there's so many things to think about in terms of you can look at, some I don't know if I should call it techniques or effects or whatever it is, but you see quite a little bit of street photography that is it's all about layers, or it's all about shadows, or it's all about certain yeah. yeah, juxtaposition. So it's all like
Yeah.
somehow I don't know why that happens in street photography. The sometimes the technique, so to say, or the it's almost like the subject of the photo.
Hmm.
And I think it in Bangladesh, I was not aware of anything yet. Like I think I just
Right.
discovered that you could shoot uh, uh, a shadow. I think that was about it. I didn't know about layers yet. I don't think I knew about reflections. I don't think I and here I think at this point I was aware of pretty much all of it. I understood uh, that I was working with different layers here, and that was the main. That is probably what makes this photo interesting, is that it makes you go from here to there, and oh, and then even maybe if you pay attention long enough, you see that there is a guy in the back.
Having gone through some of your photos, not just these five, but going through your, do you feel like there's a specific color palette that you're quite attracted to? How important is color to your photography, and how conscious are you of bringing out specific colors or choosing scenes that
Mm.
have color contrast? How important is that?
Yeah, I think it's very important, I would say, but I'm not so aware of it when I'm shooting. I did really make an effort to learn how to use Lightroom, and I did learn about color theory, and all of that really helped, because I felt like these presets, they just don't work. Or even like having
Right.
your own preset doesn't, to me, doesn't work, because of course you want to have some cohesiveness if you have a set, but it doesn't make sense if you shoot in Kolkata and you shoot in Vietnam that you would just use the same preset, like it just doesn't, that
Right.
doesn't work like that. But I try not to overdo it. I don't want someone to look at my photo and it's like, oh, it's nice, but too much editing, because there's
Is that a debate within the street photography community? How much post manipulation is considered acceptable?
there are a lot of opinions, but I would say anything you can do in Lightroom more or less is allowed, with the exception, I would say, of removing objects.
Hmm.
I feel that very often street photographers take maybe a little bit too much pride in, I only need 1 minute. 1 minute or 5 minutes is too long, or 3 minutes, like basically nothing, right?
Right.
Or like try not to crop. If you didn't do it the right, if you didn't get it, then you just didn't do it the right way. But I disagree. For me, it's like an extension of the creative process. I love sitting. I love it. I
You enjoy the
really,
process.
oh my God, I love it. I love it as much as I like the shooting. I don't mind. So I do know people. Some people just don't like being behind their computer. They rather like be out there.
Yeah.
Whereas I actually really enjoy sitting and spending an hour on a photo, like for sure. Like
Right.
yeah. And maybe I'll come back to it because I wasn't happy with it. Like I could even spend more. So I spent quite a bit of time, and that doesn't mean that there is a huge difference, but I do like to make lots of tiny tweaks.
This is the third photograph that we have, and this is an interesting photograph. When we discussed this,
Oh
well,
yeah.
when we had a bit of a back and forth text chain on this, I got this completely wrong, and I feel bad about it, but I assumed it was double
Well,
exposure
why?
because
No.
it looks like it's her lips twice, and so I assumed that you'd shot
Yeah, yeah,
double
yeah.
exposure. But can you talk a little bit about you're now at a point where you're exploring different styles, or perhaps something that would
Yeah.
be considered a signature Vica Bogaerts style.
So one, quite seasoned photographer was saying, like, "Vika, I think this is where you should go." And I'm like, yeah, but if I do that, I never have, you know, I shoot maybe one or two photos like this a year, so I will end up with no photos. But I agree. I really like this type of photography. So what we're looking
Hmm.
at is, you have in Vietnam a lot of hair salons that have on their door like a sticker of a woman. So I had been trying to experiment with shooting that sticker and then using the reflection, because it will be on a glass. So you would shoot the woman and then you would get the inside of the shop and you would get the outside. And it never worked. Then I
Mm-hmm.
found this one shop and they had closed the curtain. So you can't see the inside of the shop, and it was pretty high up, and I got really excited. So I went to the store next door and I was like, can I have a little, they have these small chairs. It's like, can I have one of the chairs? And like, and so I had to stand on the chair and then I could shoot. And then I noticed, oh, because the picture is now also visible on the curtain. If I position myself in a certain way, it looks like, I'm sure I'm photographing both the sticker and the reflection of the sticker on the window behind it. I think I took probably like 70 photos of this
Well,
lady, which is totally possible because there was no person, right? Nobody. I was
sure.
just there in front of a window, probably thinking I was a bit a nutcase, what's she photographing? But it turned out to be a photo that I like. I don't know if it resonates with anyone actually.
It's a fascinating image. It's almost slightly haunting. So when you say that this photographer that you've interacted with has spoken about this being a style that you could explore, how would you go about doing that?
I mean, I almost wonder if I could do this type of photography, but stage it, Like, why does this need to be
Mm-hmm.
candid? I don't exactly know. This, of course, it's street photography because this is just an image that I saw on the street and
Yes.
it's in the public domain. I mean, it's a very broad definition what is street photography, what is not. But this wouldn't do anything. If I submit this in a contest, it would never, I don't think it would ever be picked up by anyone. I don't know what category this even would be, which is maybe why I like it so much. You really want to shoot from the heart, though. You don't want to shoot what is doing well. Like, I feel
Yes.
very, I am on Instagram because I feel like if I wasn't on Instagram, then my photos would just be on my computer, which is a bit sad. But I do feel very anti Instagram. So I feel like I don't want to shoot what necessarily does well on Instagram, right? Which is
Yeah.
uh, I mean, some great photos do well on Instagram, but there are also a lot of mediocre photos that do very well because just not the medium is just not for what we do. It's not. It wasn't designed for that.
Do you take the audience into consideration, or is it really just this is what I enjoy, and whether people resonate with it or not is a different question?
So I think Instagram, in terms of getting feedback on your photos, is no. It's really nice to get like having a lot of people see it. There's an algorithm, and if you have a carousel and if you put music behind it, then you get significantly more viewers beyond your
Mm-hmm.
own followers. And I started to do this too. I find myself music super annoying on Instagram. I turn it off, so i,
Yeah.
I feel kind of sorry for those who follow me who also don't like music, that suddenly I'm putting music. So yes, it is nice, but it means nothing. I think what means something is maybe what other photographers who you respect is probably the most important. But you need to stick with yourself, because even then you ask three photographers who you all three respect, and they're going to say different things about your work. So at the end of the day, you need to believe in what you're doing. I mean, I don't even think my work is very good, but I do believe in it, which sounds very contradictory. I don't know how two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. My sense is that you're striving for something. With creative people that are good at what they do, they're never satisfied really with what they've produced, and that doesn't suggest that the work that they're doing is not good. It just means that they ultimately think that they could produce something even better. Progress is a part of their
Yeah,
process.
I hope so. That
Uh,
means that the
it's
best is still ahead. I'm always scared I will never take a good photo. And that is like a weird thing to think, no? That you think like, what if I never make a good photo
That is a weird
again,
thing to think,
ever?
because I think people assume when they see someone taking photographs at your level, there would be no insecurity at all about your ability.
To be honest, and we talked about it, place is also. I do think if I moved tomorrow to back to Amsterdam, where I'm from, I don't know how I would shoot Amsterdam.
But does that
So
excite you or scare you? I mean, are you attached to Southeast Asia, or do you feel like the challenge of going to a new environment would be fun and exciting?
it's not about Southeast Asia or South Asia. I think I could shoot in any place where life takes place outside. But in a place like Amsterdam, where people, even if you smile at them on the street, now I don't want to speak badly about my own people, but if you would see, if
Sure.
you sit in the bus, no way that you could take a picture of someone. You can barely smile at them. If you smile at them, they may ask you like, "Do I know you?"
What are you doing?
or or "Is there
Yeah.
a problem?" Like you. So I've seen good photos from the subway in London. I don't even think you call it the tube or whatever. Anyway, I haven't been in London very often, but I've seen some good photos. So people do
Yeah.
it. Obviously, New York has been like has was amazing when life was outside. Uh, and now, of course, life is not outside anymore in the same way. And still, good photography comes out of New York. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't see myself shooting New York or Amsterdam.
Next photograph, you talked about your the one style that you were considering, and we
Oh yeah.
now look at this photograph, which has, I believe you mentioned, has sort of an interesting element within it. So in this instance, it's the duck in the bottom left. Do you want to speak a bit about how that is something you're now exploring? And I think even the next photograph too,
Oh yeah.
photo 5, has the statue.
God, there's so many ways of assessing your own photos. But one thing, maybe that is like the last filter, or maybe it should be the first filter. I don't know. But like, can I go back tomorrow and take the same photo? And if the
Right.
answer is yes, then I don't think in the end of the day that can be in your top 10. Like, because, it should be we're really looking for special, right? So
Yeah,
maybe
that's
maybe
interesting.
this isn't like I mean you need to go to a place a lot and see a lot of photos of a place to understand. But if you take a picture of a statue, you can bet that that picture is easy to replicate. So I think that's having these elements in a photo. I mean, this I probably wouldn't put this in my top 10, but I do think getting a bird in your photo right when you want is not so easy. It's different with cats and dogs. I think you can get
Yeah,
especially in India, like you can get that dog walking in fairly often, which is great, which is a fantastic element, which is amazing.
yeah.
And the same on the train, the lady had that little idol, and I followed her because I was shooting the whole day on the train, and I thought, oh, this is great because it makes you kind of wonder. It's I mean, honestly, maybe people think it's normal that maybe it is. In India, you never know. Like guys washing themselves on the street. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I need to take
Yeah.
photos. This is amazing. But then when you've been a few times, you're like, oh, but this is like, okay, no, there needs to be something else because this happens all the time. But this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen all the time. So this is definitely something what I look for in my photos and what I appreciate when I see other people's photos. I think it would sometimes be better if we just had a little bit less. We don't all want to take the same photos. It's just so boring. And especially now with AI. I mean, AI is just so good. It is just so you want to really, as a photographer, yeah, you want to be able to capture
Unique.
what is unique. And I don't know. You of course you can give them prompts so that this is a whole other discussion. Who knows? AI
Mm-hmm.
can be its own art form. As long as it's its own art form, I think there's a place for AI photography.
My feeling on AI, and why I do think that street photography will perhaps survive at least for a while. I can't speak for future generations and how they feel about it, but there's a novelty in seeing how good an AI photograph can be. But what I'm fascinated by when I see your photography, or when I go to a gallery and I see some great photographers' work, is not just the photograph, but the reason we're having this conversation is also the effort that went into making that
Yeah.
photograph, and knowing that somebody had to go into the deepest, darkest corner of the earth, or into some markets at midnight or at 4 in the morning, and sit with people. That to me it gives its substance. Without that, it feels hollow.
I
And
totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah, 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 totally. I mean, there's nothing interesting about other than that it is amazing that we can do it. I think there's nothing interesting about an AI photo.
what are your aspirations in terms of photography? Are you at this point content to just keep exploring and figuring out styles? Would you ultimately like to have a show, one day? Would you like to produce a book? Is that something that you're conscious of?
I want to shoot more where I live. So this is, I think, a very important. I've traveled quite a bit for my photography, but in the end, I think I find the most meaning in the work that I did in Hanoi, because I could just go, on a weekly basis for a certain period of time and like really get to know the place, recognize the people. I think that's for me more satisfying than going somewhere for a week and shooting every day, from morning to evening. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
eventually one day a book, but I think one day. I'm very, very far away from that. I think I would like to explore the publishing industry, and not necessarily as for my own work. I think there is really something not there, and probably because the economics are very complicated, it's not also not a very, maybe, and you have iShot that is very big now. They produce lots of books, but they are, they run these contests. And then you have the really big publishers with the big names, but really good photographers that I've seen in the last year that are self-publishing their books. And I do wonder
Mm-hmm.
if there is not a place for like a small publishing house that is willing to break even. So that's something that I would dream of, but I don't know. I haven't done enough research to know if even breaking even is is feasible,
Would be realistic. Yeah.
yeah, and understanding that world, and finding, I mean, I think probably finding artists is hard, but not as hard as for having the right distribution channels. And like, I think it's really, I mean, I don't want to sound, I probably sound super naive to anyone that knows this business, but it is part of my, hmm, we can all dream a little bit, no? So I'd like that. That's something that I'm quite keen to explore. Thank you, Neil. It's really nice to talk, and I hope that we can do it
Thank you so much.
once again at the dinner table.